now. It's been more of an evolution into algorithmic trading, as that's the direction the market's taken. About 90% of the volume now is computers, so I'm kind of forced to go in that direction. Luckily, I started early. So I've been overseeing software development as much as trading for the better part of a decade plus. Got introduced to Nick, who went to high school, my younger brother, and been working on Viva since just the beginning of the year, basically early January. I had just started really learning what blockchain was all about. First read about it years ago and kind of tucked it away. And in the fall, really kind of dove into it to see what the technology is all about besides the headlines on Bitcoin. And quickly realized I wanted to get involved in something, anything. My brother came to me with Nick's project, Viva, and that sounded good to me. I think it's a good application for the technology. So that's what I've been doing for the last 6 months or so, working with Nick. That's Wilson next to him. He's our Chief Strategy Officer. Marlon I met through my wife, who works at UNC, which is where Marlon works, and he's got a background that's very appropriate for our company, so I asked him to be an advisor, and he said yes. And you want to say a few words, Marlon?
Sure. So, as Ben said, I'm currently, my day job, so to speak, is at UNCW. I've been in North Carolina for about 5 years, but before that, I spent 13 years running a algorithmic and program trading operation for an affiliate of Cantor Fitzgerald, which is one of the bigger firms in New York. After coming to North Carolina, I started a consulting firm that basically focused on disruptive technology like blockchain, robo-advisors, and the like. And so I published a number of pieces of capital markets research, just sort of looking at the landscape. So when Ben and I connected, this was right up my alley. As a matter of fact, the first security I ever sold was a mortgage-backed security. So I kind of watched the evolution of the space.
That makes him our resident mortgage-backed security expert.
That's all it took. So, I'm basically assisting as an advisor, and pretty excited about the possibilities, and we think we're on to something.
Cool.
Do you guys want to give an intro?
Nick, Wilson, you guys want to say a few words?
Yeah. Hi everyone, thanks for having us. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes,
It's great to see you all out here. We're really excited to be here and tell you about our project. First, I'll just introduce myself and then my colleague Wilson. And my name is Thomson. I'm the CEO of Viva. I started the project about a year ago now with my director business partner Christian, who's our developer and blockchain engineer. So if you have any really fancy questions about how the whole blockchain works and internet technologies, we'll have to refer those questions to him. More of a finance guy. I'm from Bermuda. I was born and raised there, but I went to Florida State University and studied finance and accounting there. I then began my career at KPMG as an accountant and ventured out into entrepreneurship, and about a year ago started doing this pretty much full time. And yeah, I'll pass it over to Wilson.
Hey guys, my name is Wilson Carter. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a little burned because yesterday was July 4th and we're having a great time. So I'm Chief Strategy Officer for Viva. My experience stems from time with the NFL. I've worked in Hollywood, I've worked for US senators, and I've done marketing and strategy for all those different industries. And when Nick came to me with the idea of Viva, it just blew my mind because I've seen firsthand how different countries and regulations can really impact people's lives in a direct way, and how inefficiencies in lending can really hurt families. And Viva really aims to solve a lot of these problems. So I'm really excited to you guys today. And I'm really excited to hear about it.
So I'll start off by just telling you how the idea originated and why it originated and what got me involved. So first of all, I was involved with just buying Bitcoin just for fun, way back around 2011, 2012. But about 2 or 3 years ago, I started trying to, so I live in Bermuda, and Bermuda might not know, but it has quite a good financial and regulatory environment. It's very well known for being one of the big three jurisdictions in insurance and reinsurance, which are huge industries. So essentially, we have a great real estate economy, and we have one of probably the third highest GDP per capita in the world. So all the risk factors for all of you finance people, all the risk factors around getting a mortgage would indicate that we were one of the best, kind of some of the best people to loan to. We're also pegged to the US dollar, so there's no currency risk there. So you would think if you just looked at the risk factors that mortgage rates in Bermuda should be very similar to the US, maybe 2 to 4%, somewhere in that range. Not much higher than that, but what it actually is around 6 to 8%. That's if you can get one loan. And just being a financial nerd as I am, I kind of really thought about that for a while, and the reason is because we only have 2 banks. So when your interest rate, when you go for a mortgage and you get your mortgage rate, that's supposed to be determined by the riskiness of that loan. So what is the likelihood that they'll pay it off? If it's super risky, like in America, you have treasury bonds, they're going to be very low. But if it's very risky, then it's going to be very high. So we saw that the risk doesn't correlate with return in that scenario, and we found that the reason is because we have 2 banks, which means there's inefficiency in the lending environment. And can you guys all hear me okay? This is for breaking. Yeah. So the inefficiency is what caused that spread from where it should have been around 3% to 6 to 8%. Right, so that's quite high. And if you take that 3 to 5% higher than it should be, over the course of a 30-year mortgage, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars. So all of this is because there's inefficiencies in the lending environment. And it's like that in many countries around the world. So I initially started to try to solve this problem without blockchain technology, just by doing mortgage brokering, and I tried to figure out ways around how could we get this foreign capital into our, to lend money to us, really safe loans, for much lower. And there were a few problems. There's problems to do with alternative mortgage financing, like who wants to hold a mortgage for 30 years? Right, like any regular investor would want to hold something for 30 years. And there's a whole bunch of other than that, liquidity. Who wants to buy this thing? Can I exit? How am I secure in this scenario of default? So there's a whole bunch of issues to do with mortgage lending. And that's when the blockchain tokens came out. So I'm excited to explain to you how we solve these problems with blockchain, and mainly something called, you might have heard of, it's called tokenization. So tokenization is, if you haven't heard of it before, it's essentially a way of securitizing something with the blockchain. Right? So we can make these tokens, and they represent an underlying asset. Now, it's quite funny in my opinion because we've, they hear all these stories and scandals of making unregistered securities. Now that never happened 5 years ago because making a security is hard. Right? That's not something that your average Joe do. So what blockchain, and especially the Ethereum blockchain, has made is that we can make securities very easily and very quickly. So what our project does is we securitize or tokenize individual mortgage loans. And those individual mortgage loans are securitized into 100,000 tokens, or you can think of them as blockchain securities. And by doing that, we're able to sell those tokens to investors from anywhere in the world. And if all the tokens are bought, then we will have originated that mortgage capital. And now you, the lender or the borrower who just got that money to buy a home, when you make your mortgage payments now, instead of going to the bank, that money didn't pay, goes through our network and gets distributed to all of the current token holders of your mortgage. So what we've done, to make a long story short, is we've circumvented the current system of having to rely on these large financial institutions to get this, because we broke it down to tiny fractions. So now anyone can participate. It's essentially democratizing the mortgage process. So instead of having to rely on going to these big banks and waiting in lines and dealing with people, and in America, you know, I know you might think so, you guys have a great deal there. That's probably the best mortgage market in the entire world, where it really gets a lot more inconveniences in some of these countries that have these very inefficient lending environments, like Panama and Costa Rica and countries in South America and Central America especially. So what you have there is you have countries that are paying the US dollar. You have, so they're earning essentially US dollars. They have extremely creditworthy individuals, worth multi-millions of dollars. And they're subject to the same loans and the same interest rates that then the next person down the road is, which is 10 to 15% in some cases. So particularly in those jurisdictions, our system of democratizing this process with blockchain technology, it makes a lot of sense because these multi-millionaires, you know, you or I will loan to them for 3-4% max, right? But they're getting bank loans at 15%. So there's a big arbitrage in this, and the main reason for that is because it's such an inefficient system. We haven't been able to securitize these loans because securitization is extremely hard without blockchain. To securitize something in the traditional sense of the word takes months of very expensive contract lawyers and then, you know, there's a whole process behind it. Now with blockchain, we can securitize something very easily and very quickly. So what it enables is, by streamlining this process, we're essentially connecting the borrowers directly with the lenders. So instead of having to use the big banks, you go directly to the person who's giving you money, except you're connected directly with hundreds of thousands of people around the world. Now, we can streamline the process and cut out all the big fees that are associated with the traditional process. So we can do it much more efficiently and much more fast, much more quickly. So by doing this, we predict we can cut off at least 1 to 2% from traditional mortgage loan interest rates. And so that's for the home buyers. And for the investors, we can get at least 1 to 2% higher returns. So this is just by streamlining both ends of the process and making it so we cut out the minimum completely. You want to say anything?
Well, we've also created the exchange, the fractional mortgage share exchange, which introduces liquidity to the market for the first time. So once you own a piece, this fractionalized mortgage share, if you need to liquidate it, you bring it to the exchange, you can then sell it for a US peg coin, and then you can put out fiat, or so dollars. And that is a massive advantage for traders. Like, it's a $31 trillion industry, and we've just made it liquid.
So the exchange is, that's one of the most important parts. So what we are is, to make a long story short, we're a platform and an exchange. So the platform lets you tokenize your mortgage and sell it to investors all around the world. The exchange is where you can, if you're an investor and you own these tokens, you're getting fixed income every month. That's also collateralized, but you can enter and exit these positions by selling the tokens. The cool thing about the exchange is that it works just like a cryptocurrency exchange, because these are just cryptocurrency tokens. So the exchange is probably the key part that improves this alternative financing system. So we've seen alternative financing grow very quickly in the past 5 or 6 years now. But there's some basic flaws when it comes to alternative financing. The main one is security. How do I know that my money that I just lent out is secure? What if they run away? That's the number one problem. The number 2 problem is liquidity. If I lend money out, how do I you know, what if I don't want to hold this thing for 30 years? What if I need to move? And what if something happens in my family, a health risk? I need my investment. With Apple stocks, I can sell them on the New York Stock Exchange. I don't want to be holding someone's mortgage for 30 years. The other one is diversification. So I think one of our better value propositions is this. With a regular mortgage, you can't fractionalize it. You either give someone their money and you say, hey, or you don't. So there's no real option for fractionalizing it. The cool thing about blockchain tokens is you could fractionalize it into as tiny pieces of that mortgage as you want. So you can buy $1 of 1,000 different mortgages. So with a $1,000 investment, you can have a diversified portfolio consisting of 1,000 different mortgages. Because there's no limit to how small it goes. And it's also the transparency and security side of it. So using these blockchain tokens, it's completely transparent. You know where every single fraction of that mortgage is at all times, and you can see that on the blockchain, which is very cool as well. So what this is doing is introducing the free market into the process, which in many countries is never existed, and it can greatly improve and give more options for home buyers. It's allowing everyday people like you and I to be able to invest into these mortgages. So why would I want to invest into mortgages? So if I want to give my money to investors to earn return, I can give it to someone like Ben over there, who will trade and try to make money on the stock exchange, or I can give it to a portfolio manager who will put in a bunch of equities and a bunch of bonds. But there's not an option for people like you and I, on our own volition, to be able to go out and invest into mortgages, private mortgages, which are collateralized, which means that they're completely secured by the house. So if you invest into a mortgage and someone doesn't pay you, you have the deed to their entitlement to their house, right? So it's arguably the best investment in the world because you get to sell the house in the end of the day. There obviously are problems that can arise, but they are still some of the safest investments in the world. So by democratizing that vehicle, that collateralized mortgage vehicle, just like the mortgage-backed securities did, what we do is we enable everyday people to be able to earn these returns that have fueled banks around the world to become some of the most powerful industries in the world for hundreds of years. So that's our project. Should we watch the video now, guys? And then any questions you have, we can answer after that?
Sure.
Okay.
Becoming a homeowner is a critical moment in our life. Owning a home provides stability, security, and a strong financial foundation for families. The beauty of blockchain is that it connects people in a way that doesn't rely on these large and monopolistic financial institutions. It evens the playing field.
Over the last few decades, technology has grown at an incredible rate, but the mortgage industry, on the other hand, has remained the same. An inherently flawed system that is controlled by just a handful of powerful central authorities. We saw the results of these flaws play out in the 2008 financial crisis, where just a few greedy bankers making unethical decisions were able to single-handedly collapse the entire global economy.
We believe it's incredibly important to improve this global financing system with the ideas of decentralization and peer-to-peer networks.
We built the fractional ownership protocol to remove these central points of failure and connect borrowers and lenders directly on a global peer-to-peer network.
Viva is a hybrid platform that uses the fractional mortgage share protocol to streamline the mortgage process and revolutionize the way we buy homes by offering loans that are up to 50% lower than those of traditional commercial banks. The savings to the individual home buyer could be hundreds of thousands of dollars over the life of a typical 30-year mortgage. Viva completely eliminates the need to rely on banks and large financial institutions. Viva uses blockchain technology to tokenize individual mortgages into thousands of smart contract power fractional mortgage shares, providing the opportunity You'll have people in London helping families buy homes in Mumbai or Buenos Aires.
Subsequently, each month when the home buyer pays their mortgage payments, the smart contract is activated, and instead of going to a large bank, the principal and interest payments are then remitted via the blockchain directly to individual investors around the world.
The return on these investments could be up to 15%, plus you receive the satisfaction knowing you're contributing to universal stream of home ownership. Viva provides mortgage investors with complete safety and insurance in scenario of default by underpinning loans with mortgage insurance and credit default swaps. This means if an international borrower were to default on their loan, the mortgage insurance contract would execute, and lenders would receive the promised collateral directly from the insurance company or CDS holder.
Well, in essence, the other reason that I like Viva Network is I'm rather than the banks having a stranglehold on mortgages, it's now opening it up to the public to be able to get pieces of money. In addition, what I especially like about it is it's going to be insured or reinsured by insurance companies. If for any reason one of the people whose houses I invested in defaulted for any reason at all, it's completely secure. The insurance company will kick in and I'll get everything.
Liquidity is introduced through Viva's internal fractional mortgage share exchange. That will function much like a cryptocurrency exchange, providing investors with the ability to enter and exit the fractional mortgage holdings with ease and flexibility.
Another significant advantage of the Viva Network, in my opinion, is that you actually have liquidity. You can go onto the Viva Network and you can sell that fractional mortgage share quite easily and quite quickly. In my past, I've actually invested in people's mortgages privately, but the problem with investing in somebody's mortgage individually is it's extremely difficult to find somebody to take you out of that investment. With the Viva Network, liquidity is not an issue. It can be sold very quickly and very easily, and that's a massive advantage to Viva.
One of the key things of the Viva platform is that there's a native token to the system, and that's the Viva token. It's the medium of exchange for this market. Viva will be exchanging for Bitcoin, Ethereum, dollars, euros, and so on.
Viva tokens are the fuel and the underlying technology behind fractional mortgage. And because Viva streamlines the process, we predict that we'll be able to originate these loans within a week in most cases, all by using the free market for capital origination. Furthermore, without the expense of middlemen stripping these investments of their attractiveness, we expect these fractional mortgage shares to be able to provide much higher returns relative to the risk of investment, all with just a few clicks of a button. Or users can hold on to it, which may appreciate as the network grows.
Viva is unique in that anyone who uses the technology can become an investor. And when Viva is successful, they can share their financial success. It's like being able to invest in Uber or Facebook when they were only started. Banks have been making billions of dollars off this model for decades. And now it's time for people to do the same and take it back what's theirs. Viva is going to completely revolutionize the way we purchase homes by making it faster, easier, and more affordable. Smart, streamlined, transparent, and secure. Viva is helping to create a new generation of mortgage loans. Join us and become part of the mortgage revolution.
So that was a rough draft. We actually haven't finished that video yet. We'll probably show you guys a preview. Do any have any questions that I can help answer for Ben or Wilson? Yeah.
How do you determine the credit worthiness of people that you're lending money to? How do you express that in the contract? On the other end, when the property is insecure, how do you value that? Prevent that property from being manipulated or having people that are crazy?
I actually can.
Can we give him a mic or something?
He was asking about, I can handle this one, Nick. He was asking about basically the process of the lending that would involve the hubs. Yeah, we're going to start off, and this will probably be even after it's no longer, even after it's no longer technologically necessary. There will probably will be people in the foreseeable future who want to deal with a human, even if we've got present in our way of doing things. And, for all intents and purposes, the pre-borrowing stuff will largely remain the same, working with real estate professionals at our hubs in each area where we do business. So, the asset will be verified in the same way that it is now. All that information will be, loaded into the blockchain, so it can be verified, transparent, all the things that are tracked about blockchain. So in that regard, the unknowns are removed the same way they are now through the same due diligence process that they see about before lending. Nick, did you want to add to that?
Prevent the fraud though that happened in 2006, 2007.
Well, a lot of that fraud was, a result of not borrowers, but the banks.
Well, and a lot of it too is, to your point, I think that's where blockchain becomes important, because one of the, key features of using blockchain is to remove the ability to commit fraud, title fraud, this sort of thing, which is
They're not title fraud, but one of the problems they have is in the sense that we have a collusion between the appraiser, the state agent, and someone else.
Just to say that we can't hear you.
All right, Nick, I'll clue you in a second. Is there a
appraisal could be artificially inflated.
Well, I mean,
and how do you prevent that?
Well, one of the good things about blockchain is the person who conducts the appraisal, that's it. That person's name is going to be forever linked to that. So if he engaged in fraudulent activity, he's not hiding from that down the line. But the big factors that brought the world to its knees in 2008 were really the greed of the investment banks packaging these really esoteric, almost nobody within the banks understood them type of products, where all of a sudden one loan is levered 50, 100, even more times. So one failure is 100 failures in the system. So they didn't have enough mortgages to sell. They couldn't get their hands on enough to sell. So each mortgage, they said, let's make it 100 mortgages, levered many times over, so they could resell it over and over again. But the flip side of that is, and then they also loosened their standards to let more loans in the first place. The combination of those two things, subprime candidates with no applications that have any verified jobs, assets, income, all that kind of stuff, 2% down, no percent down. You combine that with the fact that they're levered 100 times over, that's a recipe. You only have a small number of defaults for all of a sudden the whole thing come crashing down. At Viva, at least for our part, besides the transparent due diligence process in the beginning where we do the same type of research into the, research space, probably the right word, but same due diligence in terms of the quality of the applicant and the property in question, we're not going to allow 2% down, no income verification type loans. We're not going to, that's a bigger scale.
Yeah, so can I touch on that really quick? I only heard 2008. Is that what you're exactly talking about? What I really want to say about that is that so 2008 was how I describe it, a function of a disconnect between a real buyer and a real seller. So in America, we were essentially disconnecting, the banks who were issuing these loans to people were not the ones holding them on their books, right? And because of that, there was a disconnect in the free market, which means that these people were giving the loans, but they weren't holding them. So, and the reason was because there was always going to be a buyer who they were going to make a lot of money. Now, that, in my definition, is exactly how we are fixing the problem. We're completely free market. There are no middlemen in between. So the only person who gets to decide if you get that mortgage for the terms that you would like, or that are issued to the investors around the world, the only people who decide are the free market of investors. So by definition, it will change a lot of things. In some countries, rates might get much higher. In some countries, rates might get much lower. But the free market will decide, the people who are holding that instrument will decide who gets their mortgage originator. Right? So it will be directly correlated with the risk. And in my opinion, that was the big problem with the mortgage situation in the U.S. That, yes, it was amplified by these complex products that everyone was making a whole bunch of money along the way, but it really began with the disconnect between, if the banks were the ones to hold each of those people's mortgages, they wouldn't have been giving out these mortgages to everybody, and the housing market wouldn't have got out of control. It would have been in equilibrium. So what happens when you mess with equilibrium in financial markets is all of these things, right? And in my opinion, it's always a short term, it's always a band-aid. By introducing Fannie Mae and government regulations and all these, it's my strong belief that you're messing with the free market, and it might look good, it might feel good for a little while, 10, 20 years. Eventually it will come crumbling down because equilibrium is the only sustainable economic condition. And by connecting the free market, the bid directly with the ask, the buyer directly with the borrower, that is how you maintain equilibrium.
But again, you have the issue, how do you verify, as I said, an investment that wants tokens? If I am going to be buying these tokens, when I look at the, I don't know what you're going to have in exchange, but is there going to be?
Nick, can you hear?
No, I think I couldn't hear that.
Sorry about that. When you, one of the concerns I have is like when you're going to buy these securities, and you want to know the person behind the security. Let's say you say there's 1,000 pieces of this mortgage. Well, like I said, there's two sides: the valuation of the property, and then also the credit worthiness of the person that's buying the house. So, how do you prevent the fraud on both ends of that? One, how does the investor know that the credit worthiness of this person, the ability to repay the loan? Because as you said, you had people that had no interest loans or no proof of income or anything like that. Is all that kind of information going to be part of the blockchain for this? So that would be a part of that.
So that's all completely transparent while protecting.
Your back, everything will be crystal clear on that.
Okay.
So that's all, completely transparent, but we do protect the individual identity.
Right, I would expect that, but I mean, well, again, there's got to be some mechanism like that you verify that user or that person that's buying.
So that way it works exactly like a regular loan. Getting any regular loan is a physical process. We have traditional credit approval process, traditional appraisal process on your home, proof of employment. That process is all exactly how it would be at the bank. And then it's relayed in the form of credit ratings. So we do they're like the Moody's or Standard & Poor's ratings on risk. So we'll rate your credit risk in a scale of AAA, AA, etc. And so you get to A, look at it yourself, B, look at the ratings that have been given to your credit assessment and your essentially your default risk assessment. And any investor around the world will be able to see that. They'll be able to look into it themselves. They'll be able to even look at the mortgage contract and read it if they would like.
Plus the ultimate recourse, if somebody were to have gotten past us with fraudulent valuation of your home somehow, fraudulent representation of your income, any of these things happen and you invest in the mortgage that folds as a result of their inability or the house is not worth it. It's insured. It's insured, and you get, you'll get paid out by the insurance policy on that property, and then Viva will handle that with the insurance company and settle down the line. So the holders of tokens get made whole in the event of a default, which is the concern here if they can't afford the property by engaging in fraudulent application.
What triggers that default?
If they just typically the traditional way, they stop paying for, it's different, like 3 months, 4 months, whatever the threshold for, that's either chosen by the lenders or the company Viva. Then once that threshold is reached, it kicks in. Nick, have you do you know exactly where that threshold will be determined? Like how many payments need to be missed?
Sorry, we didn't hear anything.
When does the insurance contract kick in? Like after 5 months of missed payments?
So there's it's called so in every mortgage contract you have the default, the defined default, and it would the definition of a default, whether it's 2 or 3 missed payments or 4 or 5 or 6, it would vary depending on the country and depending on the rules, and there's a lot of regulations to do with default, repossession. They vary widely. The America, I know, I'm American as well. We're so used to, oh yeah, the house gets repossessed. In some countries, that is, that's one of the bigger unforeseen problems that we run into. So all of that has to be very, very well defined in the mortgage contract. And once that default, once it's executed and you say, yes, this is a default, there's been 4 consecutive missed payments, and XYZ has happened. At that time, the mortgage insurance contract, PMI or credit default swap, is executed, and the lenders are directly paid their promised collateral within the terms of that agreement at that time, at the time of the default.
So you're relying upon the liquidity that's sitting in this token, in this token system, right? Is what you're relying upon.
Can you hear that, Nick?
Say that one more time.
So you're relying upon the liquidity that's going to be the backbone of this, like all the Viva token liquidity. That's what you're relying upon. So, because in the mortgage meltdown, which I'm pretty familiar with it, I own many deals from that, and I dealt with mortgage-backed securities, and I'm familiar with the top end special interest vehicles when they own out as well. So, what I'm curious about are 2 things actually. One is, where does the liquidity come from? And 2, the insurance process, because that was what really caused the in the mortgage meltdown. So I'm really curious on how you're mitigating the risk of that, and how you're.
So first I'll touch on the liquidity part. What we use to originate the loans, so if you want to be or if you want to be a lender, you can invest and get the monthly payments. We use a stable currency, a stable US dollar pegged currency, and that is it's a blockchain pegged currency, so it's asset backed, and therefore there is no liquidity requirement because it will always be the price of the US dollar. And the one we use in particular is audited by insurance companies. So it's for that you can trust it's much more and the current. They use the current so the liquidity as far as the token, that's not an issue because it's a US dollar peg token.
Hold on, Nick, 1 second. Shane, do you mean in the secondary market that we've been talking about, the fractional mortgage share market?
Both actually, because I'm really curious about the secondary market.
Okay.
This initial one really is on the first market, being enough liquidity in the first market with what the pool of people you'd be pulling from. And then when you put that in the secondary market, so you'll pull that and then you'll tranche it, I'm sure, in the secondary market, and then you write an insurance policy on top of that that covers everything if it goes into a credit default swap or something.
Yeah.
Right? Is that my understanding correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Say tranche. We don't tranche.
Yeah, tranche. Do you tranche these? Like in the
No, they're not tranche. So we do what is called a rata. So as far as if you want to diversify, are you referring to diversification?
No.
Well, when I'm in the tranches, yeah, because you mentioned the AAA, you'd be pegging this, and I would think it would be a Moody's, which is interesting. So you'd be pegging this to a Moody's or something like a Moody's. So there is
no, it's not pegged to Moody's.
Okay.
So this is an internal credit assessment.
But what is that? Okay. Got
Nick,
it.
let Marlon jump in.
So if I understand your question, you got 2 questions. One is, how are we going to build a secondary market?
Yeah.
And then the other question is, refresh me there.
With the secondary market is how you tranche that in the secondary. So
Sure.
the first one is the liquidity in the primary market.
Right.
It is really playing.
And that's
off
going to
this
be built
question.
just by selling tokens, making mortgages.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. And then you sell it in the secondary market.
The secondary market is ambitious. Nothing like it's been done to the best of my knowledge where individual fractionalized mortgage, they don't exist. So by definition, it doesn't exist. But the concept, I think, is a new one. Real estate and mortgage trading is not what I'm an equities trader, but the way that Nick and I have discussed it to create the liquidity that we were talking about having available to the holders. will necessitate, we can't make a market in 10,000, 100,000 different mortgages. There won't be any liquidity at all. What we'll do, whether you call them tranches or something else, is combine pools of mortgage by like attribute in terms of risk profile and return, so that you have, group A of mortgages that are returning 6% with this type of credit profile. So they'll be grouped so that when people come with their mortgage for Bob Smith in Nebraska that pays this and the risk is this, it'll be grouped with other like mortgages so that there'll be buyers and sellers centralized in each type of pool, so that they'll be effectively interchangeable because of their like attributes.
A lot like the traditional mortgage-backed securities market, except token-based.
Smaller positions, they could be huge positions, but they could be as small as one token. Is that?
And that's hence the ambitiousness of that.
Yeah, it's going to be an undertaking, but that's what makes it fun.
No, it's fascinating. I'm just trying to connect.
I think we think that the real opportunity is not so much in necessarily trying to trade the secondary market if and when it comes, as much as sort of being in on the ground floor of the democratization of the mortgage.
The origination's the game changer, although the secondary market pulled off the way we imagine it working would be a big revenue driver.
Yeah, and I get it. I think it's really fascinating, and I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because the risk is basically you're decentralizing the risk across a lot of different people versus the banks. It's more all of us in the room would bear the risk of one mortgage, one house, and so to speak. And then when you write an insurance loan on it, is when you have to have I would assume you have to have a market. That's where I'm getting this.
Some of the risk that we're trying to take away from. But
yeah.
How do you? I mean, there's really a limited number of ways that you can, plan for.
Yeah.
And if there's a default and we were to forego the insurance route, we could still fall back upon the liquidation of property, but then the fractional mortgage shareholders will be stuck waiting for some period of time while that process is carried out.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, phenomenal business model it seems. So I was in mortgages for 6 years, so I have a base understanding of it. We're trying to understand your business model more simplistically. From my standpoint, it seems like you're not reinventing the wheel. You're kind of taking some 14-inch hubcaps and turning the 18-inch chrome wheels and making them.
I would say yes, but on a flying car.
Yeah, on a flying car, flying Uber. So where do you guys differentiate from traditional mortgages and just the entire process? To me, from what I'm just simply understanding from this presentation, is that you guys will effectively act as a regular mortgage company would. You originate the loan.
But behind the scenes, it'll be a little different.
But the secondary market is what changes. So you guys aren't selling to Wells Fargo and then they're selling to pension funds and et cetera, et cetera. But basically just you originate and then you guys get paid off.
Yeah, we're like a cross between the bank and Uber. Yes, we do play that role, but with a scaled back presence, I guess, so to speak, in that we're bringing the two parties together and taking a far smaller chunk than the multiple middlemen involved in the traditional process. Ultimately, yes, we are an originator, and that's not reinventing the wheel. Nick, can you guys hear? Did you hear
the origination funds will come from like you guys as a bank?
No.
Right? And then
No. Crowdsourced across the world. So
it's going to be a direct peer-to-peer origination.
Yeah, so that's why I mentioned Uber. I mean, you want a loan, you go to Viva's platform, say, I got this house, it's worth $500,000, and put 20% down, I'm looking for $400 to borrow, I'd like to pay X percent. You get it all verified with a Viva Hub representative. It gets all the due diligence performed. Then it's presented to the world at large. Hey, do you want to invest in my loan or not? If your loan package is not attractive enough, maybe it doesn't get funded, you have to come back with a higher rate to attract investors, or conversely, it looks great and it's filled, your loan is financed almost immediately in the best case scenario and you're ready to go. But ultimately, it is like coming to a bank, and the end result is you get the money for the house, but what happens behind the scenes is quite different.
How do you guys see that business model working with needing deadlines on contracts? I mean, just to ensure you have a sales contract, you're going to close on a certain date, right? You need money to be available by that date.
To work with the seller of the house.
If it's going to be direct peer-to-peer, because then that's somewhat out of your control.
True. Nick, can you guys hearing?
No, I
can't. I can't hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Marlon, you can just switch over so you're in front of the screen.
Sure.
That way they can see everybody.
So, right here, or?
Yeah, or you can.
Yeah, and if you guys have questions, the microphones are working great, or you
Yeah.
got a little bit super close for all that. I hope nobody has a clue. Or come up to this microphone, because they can't hear our questions.
Was there more that you wanted to address?
Well, yeah, it was just the effectiveness of it. Of say, I want to buy a $250,000 home and I'm going to close in 30 days, right? How high is the borrower being sure that the money, the funds are going to be available? Because otherwise, wouldn't I kind of always have, secondary options,
Right.
third options?
So Nick, you getting that? Like,
Just repeat that question.
yeah. So how do we? His question is, we have a typical 30-day closing. What assurances does a borrower coming to Viva have that their mortgage will be financed within time to get it to the seller of the property?
So the assurance that the loan will be financed in time to get to the seller of the property. So we don't do a 30-day, it's a 10-day closing. And that's essentially, so our mortgage crowdfunding process, it's called the Viva Mortgage Platform. The loan will be uploaded onto the mortgage platform, and there will be a 10-day closing. So if it's not closed within that 10 days, then they will know. But there will be a 10-day uncertainty behind it, right? So this is a brand new system. This has never been done like this, and we are not. So on the mortgage contract, it does not say that we as a company are the lenders. It says that the holders of those tokens are. So we don't provide the upfront capital for it. We don't assure it. We say we give you the means, we give you the framework and the access to these free market investors from all around the world. And if they decide and they choose, that's a great return relative to that risk. Then you get your, then that's how the capital is originated. We don't do the bank system where we say approved in 2 days ago. It may be approved in 1 day, right? If there's a lot of people on our system, a lot of people on the platform, and they like your loan, it may be approved in 5 minutes. I mean, we've seen some of these ICOs raise $10, $20 million in 5 minutes. So,
and you can view each individual mortgage as an ICO. I guess to continue on the answer, there's no guarantee going to a traditional lender that they're going to give you the money either. And to continue the Uber analogy, it would be as if as the rider in an Uber transaction, you could bid on the ride. Well, none of the drivers say that's worth my time to come pick you up for $1 and take you downtown from here. You would not have a consummated transaction. You'd have to go back to the drawing board and say, I'll pay 10. It was similar here. If you want to get a loan for 4% and it's your risk profile and the property's value does not present to enough people as attractive, you might have to go back to the drawing board and say, I'll pay 5.5%. And then maybe you go back to the drawing board there and you get the money that you're looking for. But Viva's not guaranteeing that you will get the money you're looking for. We're guaranteeing that we'll present your case, so to speak, to the world at large, and they will make a determination on whether or not your loan is attractive enough to finance.
And I think another point too to keep in mind is, we've got a mature mortgage market in America, but the rest of the world doesn't. So at least in the beginning, I don't think that this is the target market for what we're trying to do with Viva, as much as countries like Brazil or other places that don't quite
15%.
Yeah, that don't have the functioning market that we happen to have here. So would Viva be the first place that you would go to get a mortgage loan? For Wilmington, probably not. But I think
you don't want the free market minute.
Yeah, I just think
is going to give you much cheaper money.
Yeah, we've got a mature market here, and I think the appeal is, sort of opening up using this technology to open up the mortgage market to the rest of the world.
So I'm guessing, and I'll let work on to the next one, but you guys obviously have some strategy in place to build up an army of investors right? Especially in the beginning, so that there can be liquidity.
Exactly. We envision,
process.
the Army consisting of the way we envision it, individual investors the world over, but also relationship with institutional buyers, having ready parties with appetites for mortgages, pensions, So having relationships with both them, but also, it's interesting from the borrower's perspective, but to me, it's equally interesting from the lender's perspective because, unless anyone in this room has an enormous net worth, you can't just go out and buy mortgage-backed securities. It's not enormous, but you have to have substantial. The minimum, I think it's like $25,000, something like that. You need a lot of money to play this game, and even when you do, there's a lot more fees in the process than we will have, and the exit strategy remains, much more complicated and less liquid than what our intended plan will provide. I think that the ability for somebody to invest a small amount of money, $100, $50 even, for a low price mortgage, to have a piece of a mortgage-backed security, which is about as solid an investment as you'll get outside of just putting your money in the bank into a CD.
And furthermore, Ben, if I could touch on that really quickly, you're right, it's a piece of a mortgage-backed security, but the most attractive part is it's a piece of a mortgage-backed security that hasn't been interfered by all these intermediaries in between. So the interference between the borrower and you holding mortgage-backed securities, which most of you probably do in pension funds in your pension fund portfolio, the interference between the original person who got that mortgage and your pension fund returns is a multitude of different Wall Street large organizations between the investment banks and the insurance companies and the brokers and the fund managers and the original banks and the mortgage brokers. So there's a whole array of middlemen who essentially 90% of them get caught up with this process. Which means higher returns.
Yeah, and then, when you say interference, that ultimately leads to dilution of the original return to some fraction of what it was at the beginning. The 7% or 5% that the borrower is paying, it doesn't all end up in the pocket of the people whose money is backing the loan. And with Viva, it'll be a much greater percentage of that money will go directly to the lenders.
I know I'm just being thick here, but how do I, if I put, let's just say because this is sort of a micro lending strategy, of wholesale.
Yep.
And I know I'm being thick, but how do I, let's just say if I'm somebody out there and I want to invest, and to use your example, I want to put $100 in. Do I benefit on it? If you sell that mortgage or get that mortgage at 4%, am I making 4% on $100?
Yes. So if you want more, invest $1,000 or $10,000.
Yeah. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, no, it's 4% on what you put up. Yeah.
Okay. What rate?
You can tell.
4%. It's
What about the secondary
that tranche in, it's 4%. It's whatever.
Those tokens. I'm kind of doing what you're doing. So to the extent that there's a secondary market that's token based, I guess the question ultimately is, does the value of that token peg to the mortgage that's underlying it, or does it freely trade based on some other factors like supply demand or whatever it might be? That's where you're going.
Exactly where I'm headed.
Rising
If I put in $100 and then and I'm signing up for a mortgage at 4%, I might as well go buy. I can't get this, and I'm just being silly for a second. If I can go get a CD for 4%, buy a mortgage. But if I can put it in the mortgage and then that rate starts floating and I get 15% somehow because somebody's using those.
Which is what the current mortgage-backed securities market does in effect. I mean, that's why you're paying premiums or whatever. So ideally, you would want to build up enough, momentum that we build a market that's viable, that we bring in partners, be it, even though we hate the banks, sometimes we need them, that get interested in what we're doing. And I'll just give you the example of what happened, let's say 5-6 years ago with wealth management. So up until that point, to invest or have Schwab manage your money, you had to have $500,000 or you know, whatever the case was. You guys, some of you probably have heard of robo-advisors like Wealthfront and so forth. They basically disrupted wealth management like we're trying to do with the mortgage market.
No, I'm all for it.
In the sense that, you know, it used to be that if you didn't have that big chunk of money, they didn't want to talk to you. And so Wealthfront, Betterment, some of the other ones, they didn't really reinvent wealth management as much as they created a platform that just let, you know, regular folks get involved. So the basis of what they're doing is an app on the phone that lets you, you know, put in $5 if you want, or $50, and they charge you a fee. But the underlying investment vehicle is modern portfolio theory that you could probably look on Wikipedia and replicate. So, I mean, I'm oversimplifying, but essentially that's what we're talking about, is trying to come up with a platform that does something similar for mortgages, and you know, it just opens it up. And so maybe that $100, literally, we get to a point that there's a Viva app on your phone, and you know, and you can basically get involved that way, and it cuts out the middleman. But when that happens, it gets to a certain point that suddenly, just like with robo-advisors, once they saw that all of a sudden Wealthfront had $1 billion under management, and it's all people putting in $500 at a time, then suddenly they got involved, and then that, you know, so to the extent that that can happen with us, it creates that market that you're talking about.
One last note that's tangential. You know, that $100, one of the proposed products that we've discussed that would grow that $100 would be basically taking advantage of compound interest, where instead of pocketing the returns, they are automatically reinvested into, again, like attribute type mortgages, the one you've invested in, so that, you know, over time your $100 does grow if you like to go that way and not just pocket the interest payments.
I'd like to ask a quick question about your exchange. Actually, I have two questions. One is, you know, any of these centralized exchanges are just kind of, you know, a honeypot, right? So
it's not decentralized.
Oh, no, it's a centralized exchange, right?
Yeah.
So if it gets hacked, right? Do you guys have any insurance policy for Viva? Do you have like a certain amount of Viva, like, put to the side, or how do you handle that if you were to get hacked?
We won't have Viva put to the side. The exchange, just so it's going to be much more and for obvious reasons, catered to institutional investors who are well aware of risks in mortgages and fixed income returns. It's, you know, these type of yields aren't what young investors are going towards, if anything, equities. So it will be attractive for institutional investors who are looking for a diversified fixed income returns on their portfolio. So with all that, there will be, it's much less like a crypto exchange as you would think about it. When you talk about decentralized exchange, it's much more of a traditional, like anything E-Trade except for bonds.
So, right, if there was a security breach on the exchange, do you guys have any sort of plan for that, like an established plan?
Yeah, so all of the security side and the development of the exchange, that's not my expertise. That will be a Christian, our chief architect, question as far as the security and tech side of it. But I know that the jurisdiction we're in, which is Bermuda, the regulations as far as exchanges, and then we would classify that tokenized bond exchange, or fractional ownership exchange, that would be classified as a cryptocurrency exchange, because these are ERC-20 tokens, although they wouldn't be cryptocurrencies. We call them digital assets. So in Bermuda, we have a new act that just came out. It's called the Digital Asset Business Act. And what it does is it hones in on all of digital asset regulations world. And hones on all the risks associated with exactly what you're talking about, security breaches, insurance for investors, making sure that if something were to happen, it's covered and taking the precautions necessary so they don't happen. That's a very, very long and complex answer, but all of our exchange and our entire business will be governed under the Viva law, and it will obviously abide by all of the strict requirements for exchanges and for tokens, etc. So, to answer in short, yes, that is something we're definitely looking at to make sure it's the most attractive investor experience possible.
Great. And my second question is, where are you in your process? I saw like on the website right before we started, it said, July 12th. Is that the actual, is July 12th like the actual, where you're going live, or have you beta tested anything? Where are you in that process?
So we are doing what's our token generation event, so it's commonly referred to as an initial coin offering. And we're selling that token, and it has an integrated function into our platform and our exchange. So for instance, it gives you 75% off transaction fees if you pay with the Viva token when you're trading these fractional mortgage shares. So in theory, it can increase yields by holding these Viva tokens for investors.
Nick, she was asking though if that July 12th date pertains to development, and that July 12th date.
So what July 12th is the second round of the ICO where we're selling this Viva token, and it's called the main token sale. And during the main token sale, it will be a 2-month period where we'll be selling this Viva token as a utility token, and unfortunately, it is not available to United States investors, unfortunately.
Accredited investors.
Yes, just because there's very strict securities laws in the U.S., and we've been advised by our advisors to disallow until we have express permission from the U.S. regulators. Which hopefully will be soon, and hopefully we'll be able to update everyone at this event if and when that happens, but we cannot say it can happen until we get express approval.
Her question also was, where the development process are we, when are we targeting for launch type of stuff, and we're currently hoping to. You want to take it?
Yeah, there's a roadmap on the website that there's a whole bunch of stuff. Probably has about 60 different goals, time goals. We are shooting to originate the first mortgage, and we're much ahead of schedule with that. Using the tokenized, we call it fractional mortgage share protocol. We're shooting for that by Q2 of 2019, and we think we might even get it by the end of this year. We already have 2 parties that are interested in doing the kind of beta version of tokenized mortgage. And so we're starting out, the rollout is quite interesting. We're doing very, very basic, very, very simple to start, kind of proof of concept. We already have the tech already made and ready. And then once the proof of concept, we're going for a big media hype and that kind of route. Then we're going to, we have some institutional investors who are considering it as well. So we'll roll out very simple, it's like someone who knows someone, but they go through the tokenized model, and then we go towards multiple parties, and then we go towards international parties. And we start out in one country where we know the regulatory environment, and a very, like, Bermuda's ideal because it's a safe real estate market. If you want to invest money in any island, for sure, it's the best one to go to. It also is pegged to the US dollar, so the currency risk is much less. And then we're going to head over to Panama as our second priority because they also have a pegged US dollar and very inefficient lending environment there. And all of our first loans, so probably the first 3 years on our expected rollout, are going to be extremely, extremely safe borrowers who are looking for very, very safe until this has been proven and we have a roadmap and track record.
Great, thank you.
Do you see your token being able to have also additional liquidity added to it as the securitized exchanges and markets open up, such as T0, et cetera, or are they tied to individual smart contracts, and tied to certain blocks of loans? And
The token is similar to, well, the most similar is the Binance token. So it provides utility and can increase investor yields within our exchange. And it's also used as an in-app incentive system. But it will be on a bunch of exchanges. We already have some big ones that we can't announce publicly yet, but yeah, it will be on exchanges. It will be free market. It can go up, it can go down. So it will function just like a cryptocurrency, that one. And it's for, we're using the token as an incentive. So our team members can get it, our advisors are compensated. And ideally how it works is that it's a fixed supply and there's a real utility. And as the network grows and as we gain popularity and we get more press and do more mortgages, et cetera, more people will be looking to use it with the fact that more people want to use it. The demand and the supply situation will present a good good economic conditions for current holders on those exchanges. So there could be a bunch of exchanges that are.
Okay, so you have a utility token, and then I guess if you invest, you'll get some sort of a securitized token?
Yeah, so exactly. So the Viva token is the utility token on the platform. Completely separate from that is the tokenized mortgage bonds.
Gotcha.
In each mortgage will have its own
Those while they are tokens, they will not be available on other exchanges. They will only be available on our exchange.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. You mentioned the network hub representative. Can you guys go into that a little bit? I have a little bit of knowledge of it just from reading through the white paper, but just how that really helps to gather all of the information so that you guys can calculate the risk profile for these mortgages.
So that is just like a regular bank. So there'll be underwriters and mortgage underwriters. So it's just important, especially initially, to have a physical person who can do a credit assessment the traditional way and physically go to the house and do a property appraisal. That is very important for our initial stages, particularly to protect investors.
Any other questions?
Okay, guys, well, that's it. Thank you so much for sitting in the hot seat for throwing at you like a machine gun. So, it's a great, interesting project. Looking forward to seeing the rollout and following the progress of it. And thanks for taking the time all the way from Bermuda. You could be sitting in the water, but sad you chose to spend your time doing this, sucker. Okay. So,
always do. I would love to stay in communication with you guys, especially there were some awesome questions. Thank you. And we're also looking for your feedback. We're going through, obviously, as you might know, our model is quite complex, and it is hard to explain to the everyday person kind of what we do, especially when it's just landing onto our website. So we would love your feedback. We'd love to have you in our community to be able to give you updates, send you email updates, let you know our progress. So Ben, you can give them my email, and you can just liaise from here. And I'd love to update you guys if you have any ideas or if you want to ask any other questions. We'd love to help.
thanks so much. Yeah, if there's one thing our group is good at, asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, we're awesome. I love it.